accessing the records hidden from public view. You are watching Bodycam Story Vault. Step inside.
Sir, put down the bags. We need to ask you some questions.
Who sent you here?
We received credible information about this residence. We need proof of citizenship, sir.
You see those plates? From Congressman James Mitchell.
Congressman or not, we're authorized to verify. Turn around and put your hands behind your back.
Cuffs.
Two ICE agents thought they were executing a routine immigration check. They had an address, a tip from an anonymous source, and the confidence that comes from years of operating without consequences. But when they pulled into the driveway of Congressman James Mitchell at 7:18 a.m. on a Tuesday morning and demanded he prove his citizenship, they set in motion a chain of events that would end with both agents in federal prison, their careers obliterated, and congressional hearings that would reshape how federal enforcement operates nationwide. Mitchell wasn't just any target. He was a six-term United States representative, ranking member of the House Subcommittee on Border Security, former prosecutor, and Harvard Law graduate whose family had been in Georgia for 6 generations since Reconstruction. His congressional plates were visible on the vehicle. His credentials were beyond question. Congressman or not, were authorized to verify, the agent said, reaching for handcuffs. They weren't authorized. They didn't verify. And within 90 minutes, the Speaker of the House, the FBI Director, and the Secretary of Homeland Security all knew what had happened in that driveway. The footage would be played on the House floor. The trial would be broadcast nationally. The settlement, $14.2 million, would be the largest in ICE history. But the real cost wasn't measured in money. It was measured in prison sentences, destroyed careers, and a member of Congress who returned to Washington and passed the legislation he'd been drafting for years, with bipartisan support that didn't exist before two agents pulled into the wrong driveway. The gated community in Brookhaven sat 15 miles north of downtown Atlanta. Quiet streets, manicured lawns, the kind of neighborhood where nothing happened before sunrise. Congressman James Mitchell had lived there for 18 years, raised 3 children in that house, written legislation at the kitchen table, practiced floor speeches in the backyard where only his wife could hear. Tuesday morning, 7:18 a.m., flight to Reagan National at 10:15. House session scheduled for 2 p.m. Mitchell loaded his briefcase into the black Lexus, congressional plates clearly visible, and reached for his travel mug. The white SUV pulled through the gate behind a resident's vehicle. Standard security bypass. The kind of thing that would be reviewed later and found wanting. 2 agents stepped out. Tactical vests. ICE insignia. Mitchell watched them approach. 12 years in Congress had taught him to read situations quickly. 6 years as a prosecutor had taught him to document everything. Sir, put down the bags. We need to ask you some questions. Mitchell set down his briefcase. Slowly, the movement of a man building a record. Who sent you here? We received credible information about this residence. We need proof of citizenship, sir. Mitchell gestured to the Lexus, to the plates that identified the vehicle as belonging to a member of the United States Congress. You see those plates? I'm Congressman James Mitchell. The agent, later identified as Kevin Rawlings, 8 years with ICE, didn't look at the plates. Congressman or not, were authorized to verify. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. Above the garage, the Ring camera recorded everything. Across the street, a neighbor had stepped onto her porch with her phone raised. Mitchell didn't turn around. For the record, I'm a sitting member of Congress, Georgia's 7th District. I serve on the House Homeland Security Committee. I'm the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Border Security, the committee that oversees your agency. Sir, turn around. You have no warrant. You have no probable cause. You're standing in my driveway demanding I prove citizenship while my congressional plates are 3 feet from your face. Rawlings reached for his handcuffs. Mitchell didn't move. You're making a career-ending mistake. For the record, I'm documenting this encounter for all recording devices present. Mitchell's voice carried the precision of a man who had tried cases, questioned witnesses, and delivered floor speeches to empty chambers at 2 a.m. when the stakes required it. I am Congressman James Edward Mitchell, Jr. I represent Georgia's 7th Congressional District. I have served in the United States House of Representatives for 12 years. I am currently loading my vehicle to travel to Washington for an official House session. Rawlings's partner, Agent Derek Simmons, had positioned himself to the left. His Bodycam was active. So was Rawlings's. The Ring camera above the garage made 3 sources. The neighbor across the street made 4. Sir, We don't care about your titles. We have information about this address. What information? That's confidential. You're attempting to detain a member of Congress based on confidential information you won't disclose. That's not how the Fourth Amendment works. We're authorized to conduct immigration enforcement. You're authorized to conduct enforcement with proper legal basis. You have none. No warrant. No articulable suspicion. Nothing except an anonymous tip you clearly didn't verify. Mitchell pointed to his plates again. Congressional plates. United States House of Representatives. You can read them from where you're standing. Rawlings glanced at the plates for the first time. His expression didn't change. Plates can be faked. Congressional plates are issued by the Sergeant-at-Arms. They're in a federal database. Run them. We'll verify at the field office. You'll verify right here. Or you'll leave my property. Simmons shifted. His Bodycam captured his face, the doubt that Rawlings refused to acknowledge. Kevin, maybe we should call this in. I said he's coming with us. Mitchell pulled out his phone. Slowly. Visibly. I'm calling the Capitol Police. Then I'm calling the Speaker's office. Then I'm calling the FBI field office in Atlanta. Put the phone down. No. He dialed. The call connected in seconds. This is Congressman Mitchell. I'm being detained in my driveway by ICE agents without a warrant. I need Capitol Police liaison immediately. Notify the Speaker's office. Rawlings grabbed for the phone. Mitchell stepped back, not fleeing, documenting. You just attempted to seize a member of Congress's communication device. That's obstruction of official duties. The neighbor across the street, Dr. Patricia Owens, a retired federal judge, had crossed to the edge of her lawn. Congressman Mitchell, I'm recording everything. Do you need me to call additional authorities? Please do, Patricia. Atlanta FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and my Chief of Staff. Rawlings was frozen between actions, his hand still extended, his authority evaporating. This is your last opportunity, Mitchell said. Leave my property. File a proper warrant request through appropriate channels. Or continue down this path and discover exactly what happens when you violate the constitutional rights of a member of Congress. Rawlings reached for his cuffs again. Turn around. Mitchell didn't turn. I warned you. The calls cascaded simultaneously. Capitol Police reached the Speaker's office at 7:31 a.m. The Speaker, in her car en route to the Capitol, was briefed within 90 seconds. FBI Atlanta field office received notification at 7:33 a.m. The special agent in charge recognized the address and the name immediately. The Secretary of Homeland Security's Chief of Staff was awakened at 7:38 a.m. with a message that would ruin his morning. ICE agents attempting to detain Congressman Mitchell without warrant. By 7:45 a.m., the situation had reached the level where careers end and policies change. Mitchell remained in his driveway. He hadn't moved, hadn't turned around, hadn't complied with orders that had no legal foundation. Rawlings and Simmons had retreated to their vehicle, not leaving, but no longer advancing. The calls had spooked them. The neighbor with the phone had spooked them. The realization that something had gone wrong was beginning to penetrate. Dr. Owens remained at the edge of her lawn. Her phone was still recording. Her own calls had reached a federal judge she'd served with for 15 years. Patricia, Mitchell called across the street. Please note for the record that the agents have retreated but have not departed. Noted, Congressman. Please also note that my vehicle, with clearly visible congressional plates, remains in the driveway where it was parked when they arrived. Noted. The first official vehicle arrived at 7:52 a.m. Not ICE. FBI. 2 agents from the Atlanta field office, responding to a congressional protection alert. They stepped out with credentials visible. Congressman Mitchell, are you injured? I'm fine. Those agents, he pointed to the ICE vehicle, attempted to detain me without a warrant. They ignored my identification. They ignored my congressional plates. They're still on my property. The FBI agents approached the ICE vehicle. The conversation was brief. Rawlings and Simmons stepped out, visibly diminished. Congressman Mitchell, we need these agents to remain on scene pending investigation. Is that acceptable? It's acceptable. I want their Bodycam footage preserved. I want their phones secured. I want a full accounting of what credible information brought them to my driveway. By 8:15 a.m., additional vehicles had arrived. Georgia Bureau of Investigation, U.S. Marshals, the Brookhaven Police Department, whose jurisdiction had been violated without notification. Mitchell finally moved from his position in the driveway. His coffee had gone cold hours ago. His flight was missed. His House session would proceed without him. He didn't care. His chief of staff arrived at 8:30 a.m., already fielding media calls, already coordinating with the congressional communications team. "Sir, the speaker wants to address this on the floor today. Tell her to wait. I want to address it myself. Tomorrow. With the footage." The footage is already being requested by 3 committees. Good. Make sure they get it. Mitchell looked back at his driveway, at the Ring camera that had captured everything, at the neighbor who had documented from across the street, at the ICE agents now sitting in separate FBI vehicles, their careers ending in real time. "I've been writing enforcement accountability legislation for 12 years. Never had the votes." He paused. "I think I have them now." The investigation moved with the velocity reserved for cases involving members of Congress. Kevin Rawlings had accumulated 23 complaints in 8 years. Warrantless stops, unverified tips, disproportionate targeting of minority professionals in affluent areas. 19 complaints dismissed, for resulted in written reprimands. No suspensions, no terminations, no accountability until Congressman Mitchell's driveway. His stop records revealed the methodology. 78% of his enforcement actions targeted Black or Hispanic individuals. His hit rate, actual immigration violations found, was 4%. Industry standard was 31%. He wasn't finding violations. He was targeting demographics. The anonymous tip was traced within 72 hours. A burner phone purchased in Marietta. Voice analysis and cell tower data identified the caller, Marcus Webb, a political operative with ties to Mitchell's opponent in the upcoming election. Webb had researched how to file anonymous tips. He had noted which field offices responded without verification. He had targeted Mitchell specifically, attempting to create an incident that would damage the congressman politically. The plan had backfired catastrophically. Text messages between Rawlings and Simmons told the operational story. Got a tip about a residence in Brookhaven. Gated community. Probably an overstay with money. Nice neighborhood. Worth checking. These people think gates keep them safe. These people. The phrase appeared in Rawlings's communications 29 times over 4 years. Simmons had participated in 14 of Rawlings's stops. He had expressed doubt in several. He had been told to follow orders. His cooperation with investigators began within hours of the incident. The FBI's analysis concluded that Rawlings had operated a pattern of discriminatory enforcement for at least 6 years. His supervisors had enabled it through complaint dismissals and metric-focused evaluations that rewarded stops over outcomes. Digital forensics recovered deleted communications. Rawlings had celebrated cleaning up wealthy neighborhoods. He had joked about diversity checks in gated communities. He had shared strategies with other agents for targeting suspicious residents in affluent areas. Mitchell's credentials made the case impossible to bury. Congressional oversight authority. Committee jurisdiction, media attention. The system that had protected Rawlings for 8 years couldn't withstand a single morning in a congressman's driveway. The federal grand jury convened 5 weeks after the incident. Indictments, deprivation of rights under color of law, attempted unlawful detention, conspiracy, violation of congressional immunity protections. Rawlings, Simmons, Marcus Webb, all 3 would face trial. The federal courtroom in Atlanta drew national attention. Every major network. Congressional observers in the gallery. The footage playing on screens across the country. Mitchell testified in a Navy suit, the same suit he'd worn that morning. "I identified myself as a member of Congress. I pointed to my congressional plates. I offered to verify through any official channel." The agent responded, "Congressman or not, we're authorized to verify." What happened next? He reached for handcuffs. The Bodycam footage played. Rawlings approaching. The demand for citizenship proof. Mitchell's calm identification. The reach for cuffs. "Congressman or not, we're authorized to verify." The phrase echoed through the courtroom. Simmons testified under his cooperation agreement. He described Rawlings's methodology. The preference for affluent neighborhoods. The assumption that minority residents were targets. "Did you believe Congressman Mitchell's identification?" "Yes." "Did you communicate that to Agent Rawlings?" "I suggested we call it in." He refused. Marcus Webb's testimony collapsed under cross-examination. He admitted to researching anonymous tip procedures. He admitted to targeting Mitchell specifically. He couldn't explain how creating an immigration incident would benefit his political client. The defense argued good faith. Following procedures. Standard protocol. The prosecutor's response was brief. Standard protocol doesn't include ignoring congressional plates. Standard protocol doesn't include attempting to handcuff a member of Congress in his driveway. Standard protocol requires verification. Verification that would have taken 30 seconds and prevented everything that followed. The jury deliberated 6 hours. Guilty. All counts. Rawlings. Guilty. Reduced charges. Simmons. Guilty. Conspiracy and filing false reports. Webb. Sentencing followed 8 weeks later. Rawlings, 6 years federal prison. Enhanced for pattern of conduct, violation of congressional immunity, and targeting under color of law. Simmons, 2 years. Cooperation had limited his exposure. Webb, 3 years for conspiracy and election interference. All three led from the courtroom in handcuffs. Congressman Mitchell addressed the House 3 days after the verdict. 6 weeks ago, I stood in my own driveway while federal agents demanded I prove my citizenship. My congressional plates were visible. My identification was offered. Both were ignored. He paused. I was lucky. I had cameras. I had a neighbor who recorded. I had the resources to fight back. Most Americans who face this treatment don't have those advantages. The chamber was full. Both sides of the aisle. The footage had crossed partisan lines in ways that legislative debates rarely did. The agents who targeted me operated within a system that rewarded stops over outcomes, that dismissed complaints without investigation, that enabled discrimination through indifference. He held up a document. Today, I'm introducing 3 bills. The first requires warrant verification for all residential enforcement actions. The second mandates independent review of complaint patterns. The third establishes civilian oversight boards for federal immigration enforcement. The bills had bipartisan co-sponsors. 47 Republicans, 112 Democrats. Numbers that didn't exist before the footage played on every news network in the country. The civil settlement was announced the same week. The Department of Homeland Security agreed to pay $14.2 million rather than face extended litigation that would expose systemic failures across multiple field offices. Mitchell directed the distribution. $5 million to establish a legal defense fund for individuals facing pretextual enforcement. $3 million to scholarships for law students focused on civil rights and immigration law. $2 million to community organizations providing Know Your Rights training. The remainder established an endowment at Morehouse, his alma mater, for students pursuing public service careers. ICE entered a consent decree requiring warrant verification, tip validation, and mandatory de-escalation training. The policies Rawlings had violated were now explicit federal requirements. All 3 bills passed within the year. The margins weren't close. Mitchell returned to his driveway the morning after the verdict. Same time. Same routine. Coffee mug in hand. Briefcase loaded. His wife watched from the window. Habit now. The Ring camera still recorded. The congressional plates still sat on the Lexus. The gate that had failed to stop 2 agents had been upgraded with enhanced verification protocols. Dr. Owens waved from across the street. Their morning ritual had resumed. The congressman leaving for Washington, the retired judge collecting her newspaper. Quite a week, she called over. Quite a year. He drove to the airport, flew to Reagan, walked into the Capitol where he'd served for 12 years. The legislation he'd introduced was moving through committees. The oversight hearings he'd requested were scheduled. The systemic changes he'd advocated for a decade were finally gaining traction. His son at West Point had watched the trial with his classmates. Case study in constitutional rights and federal overreach. His daughter at Yale Law had written a paper on the legal implications. Her professor had submitted it to a journal. His youngest at Morehouse had fielded questions from fellow students. Your dad really stood there and didn't move? That's what the video shows. Mitchell's family had been in Georgia for 6 generations. His great-great-grandfather had been elected during Reconstruction and forced from office when the backlash came. His grandfather had organized workers when organizing could get you killed. His father had fought cases when civil rights lawyers were targets. 6 generations of standing ground. The driveway was just the latest. Kevin Rawlings served 4 years of his 6-year sentence. Paroled to a halfway house in Alabama. Barred from federal employment for life. His pension was forfeited under federal conviction statutes. Derek Simmons completed his 2 years. He testified at 4 subsequent trials involving ICE misconduct. His cooperation continued. His law enforcement career didn't. Marcus Webb served 26 months. His political consulting career ended. The candidate he'd worked for lost by 18 points, the incident becoming the defining issue of the campaign. The consent decree remained in effect for 5 years. Federal monitors reviewed ICE operations in 12 field offices. Complaint dismissal rates dropped by 63%. Stop-to-violation ratios improved from 4% to 28%. The system that had protected Rawlings was being dismantled, not through speeches, but through audits, training mandates, and accountability mechanisms that made future violations harder to hide. Mitchell's legislation created new standards. Warrant requirements codified. Tip verification mandated. Pattern analysis required for all field offices. The Congressional Black Caucus cited the case in 47 floor speeches over the following 2 years. Not as a singular outrage, as a template for reform. Brookhaven updated its community gate protocols. Unauthorized federal vehicles could no longer tailgate residents through security checkpoints. The neighbor, Dr. Owens, received a commendation from the DeKalb County Bar Association. Her footage had been essential to the prosecution. "I just did what anyone would do," she said at the ceremony. "I saw something wrong and I documented it." Documentation. The weapon that had transformed a Tuesday morning confrontation into nationwide policy change. Congressman James Mitchell won re-election by 22 points, the largest margin of his career. His opponent never mentioned immigration enforcement. The topic had become toxic for anyone who questioned oversight. The footage had made the abstract concrete in ways that statistics never could. Mitchell continued serving on the Homeland Security Committee. His subcommittee responsibilities expanded. The agency that had sent agents to his driveway now answered to his oversight directly. He didn't use the position for revenge. He used it for reform. The same approach he'd taken for 12 years, now backed by personal experience that made his arguments impossible to dismiss. His 3 bills remained law. Amendments had been attempted and defeated. The coalition that had formed after the incident held together in ways that Washington coalitions rarely did. The Ring camera footage became part of federal law enforcement training. What happens when agents ignore identification? What happens when assumptions override procedure? What happens when the target has resources to fight back? And what that implies for targets who don't. Mitchell's driveway looked the same as it had that Tuesday morning. Concrete. Unremarkable. The kind of space where Americans should be able to load their cars without proving they belong. He still left at the same time when Congress was in session. Still carried the same briefcase. Still drove the same Lexus with the same congressional plates. The camera still recorded. The neighbor still waved. The gate still opened for residents and closed for everyone else. 6 generations of Mitchell family service. His great-great-grandfather forced from office during Reconstruction. His grandfather organizing workers. His father fighting civil rights cases. And James Edward Mitchell Jr., standing in his driveway refusing to turn around. Some things don't change. Some things shouldn't have to. The case file remains in federal databases. Case number 2024 CR 01247. Subject: unlawful detention of member of Congress. Location: Brookhaven, Georgia. Outcome: conviction. Settlement: reform. Principle established. Congressional immunity exists. Constitutional rights exist. Some driveways you don't pull into without a warrant. Congressman Mitchell proved that principle the only way available. By standing still. By documenting everything. By turning a Tuesday morning into legislation. By winning.
Every file uncovers a mystery. We appreciate your time. Subscribe to explore the hidden vault.